Good evening. Welcome to my YouTube channel, True Greatness. Definitely subscribe, view, comment, share this video, check out my other videos, share those ones as well. I'm back. First time in a while that I've done a video from my YouTube channel, and I'm going to do something I've never done before, which is a series. Right now it's a 3-part series. It might be more than that. And that series is called the Simmons Saga. So for Philadelphia Sixers fans or basketball fans, just for anybody watching this video, you're going to enjoy it. Today's going to be part 1, and then you'll be able to understand what's going on, whether you follow this situation or not. So, I'm going to come at it from 3 different perspectives to start out with. Like I said, I might do some more after the third part. First part today is going to be the role I think the Sixers have played in this whole situation. Part 2 will be at a later date, very soon, will be the role that I think Simmons have played in this situation. And then part 3 will be speaking strictly as a fan and what I think is either going on or what will be the best next steps. So first thing, starting out with, I saw that, or it's been rumored, that Ben Simmons is back in Philly. That, $8 million can do that for you. For anybody who don't know that part of the story, if he didn't come into training camp, he wasn't going to get his $8 million. The Sixers basically said, until you come in to training camp, until you get ready to play for us this season, we're not going to give you the $8 million. So, rumor has it that he's back. That doesn't necessarily surprise me. But I'm going to talk about it from the role I think the Sixers played, and in some ways I think that they overplayed their hand in this whole situation. Is sort of what got this started. So I'm going to read off some stats, and again, today's part 1, of sort of where I think a lot of this started. First thing being, and this is post-process era, and for anybody that followed the Sixers or sports in some way or a lot, specifically basketball, you know about the whole trust the process and those years of, they're not going to say they were intentionally losing because that would be against the rules, but they weren't trying their hardest to win, intentionally to try to get all these top draft picks, i.e. how we got Ben Simmons, how we got Joel Embiid, so on and so forth, and then stockpiles on draft picks to make trades and stuff like that. So these stats I'm going to give is when the young crop of Sixers, Simmons, Embiid, and then some of those players around them who some are not there anymore, when they started to make the playoffs consistently. So this is going to start from the season of 2017, 2018, and then I'm going to go to last year, which is 2020, 2021. So, for 17-18, Sixers made it to the second round, lost to Boston in 5. Season 18 to 19, 2018 to 2019, second round, Sixers lost to the Toronto Raptors in the most epic shot, and probably, well, I'm not going to say the most epic shot, that might be putting too much of an overstatement, but one of the most epic shots in basketball playoff history, with Kawhi Leonard's famous, in his only season in Toronto when they won the championship, shot it, ball hit 20 different spots of the back of the hoop. I'm exaggerating, obviously, but just watch the replay. It was a crazy shot, and ended up losing on the last second shot from Kawhi. 2019 to 2020, we lost in the first round to the Celtics. Got swept. And yes, that was during the initiation, or the initial of the pandemic, and the NBA adjusting and deciding to eventually come back and finish the season. But still, we lost in the first round. Got swept. Last year, as the number 1 seed in the East, and we had the number 3 overall record in the league behind Utah and Phoenix. We lose in the second round to a young, hungry Atlanta Hawks team in second. Now I'm going to give you some other stats. And all this is going to come back to where I think the Sixers overreached when it comes to Ben Simmons. Now I'm going to give you just Ben Simmons stats in the same span. So in the regular season of 2017-2018, he averaged 15.8 points a game, 8.2 assists, 8.1 rebounds. Go to the playoffs that same year, 16.3 points, 7.7 assists, 9.4 rebounds. Let's go to the next season, 18-19. 16.9 points, 7.7 assists, 8.8 rebounds. That playoffs? Now this is where I think the Sixers didn't really think things through. And why I'm talking about the role that they played, I believe, in the first part of this whole saga. Wherever it ends. 18-19 playoffs. Ben Simmons, 13.9 points, 6 assists, 7.1 rebounds. Now, the 2019-20 season, he didn't play in the playoffs, but this was his regular season record. So I'll kind of give him that season, but still, this is his regular season stats in 2019-2020. 16.4, 8 assists, 7.8 rebounds. 2021, last year. Now, he was back for the season in a playoff. 14.3 points, which is a drop off. 6.9 assists, 7.2 rebounds. And he's had a slow start to the season, but this is really where you see the drop off at. In the playoffs, 11.9 points, 8.8 assists, 7.9 rebounds. Now, I'm going to read off his credentials too as well. 3-time All-Star, 2-time All-Defensive team, and Rookie of the Year. Now, granted, he didn't play the year he got drafted, he didn't play that year because he broke his foot, I think it was. So he had some foot injury. So the next season, they still counted it as a rookie season because he didn't officially play that first season he got drafted. Now you say, why would you bring up all that stats? I thought this was about the Sixers' role and what they did and how they played their part in this saga. I bring up those stats because to me, that situation came about in trade rumors before the draft in reference to Ben Simmons. And there was times last season, even the start of this past season, early on, where there were some questions of, at the trade deadline, he was in those trade talks. And then he just went on a hot streak. But I think the Sixers looked at, I say, regular season Ben and tried to trade those type of numbers, not the playoff numbers that I read outside of the first time he made the playoffs where he was pretty good, except when they played in that Boston series and he was terrible. But overall, that was his first year playoff stats. I think they thought, and this is why I say that they messed up, they overvalued his trade value, if you would say. They treated him as if he is a superstar. And he is not a superstar. He is a really good player. But if you look at those playoff stats, it shows to this point in his career, and he's young. I know he's 25 or something like that. So still potentially has a lot of game to grow. But there's things that you see that as a fan, I want to say more into the fan stuff, like I said in part 3, that you're like, dude, what are you doing? Like, you're not fully tapping into your strengths and what you really can be as a full player. And it seems like sometimes he's in his own head. Obviously, no one knows that except himself. But the game sometimes reflects that when it comes into clutch moments, especially in the playoffs and seemingly especially in the second round, because that's when his stats really did. So I think the Sixers, and where I fought them, and this is why I say this is a role I think they played, is that I think they looked at the regular season stats as a whole. That Ben Simmons, when you look at the totality, he's not going to be the main scorer. He's not going to be your number two, but he can be a heck of an all-around number three in distributing the ball, getting the rebounds. He should be averaging every year at minimum 16 points a game as the third guy. And then, because Joel is the number one, and he's going to be averaging close to 30 almost every year. And then your second guy, like this past year, Tobias, can average anywhere from 19 to 20, and then Ben can average that 16, 15, 16, I'd say 15 to 17 range, and put up almost a triple-double, but also carry that in the playoffs. If he does that, then he truly reaches his potential. And I believe, the Sixers traded him, or attempted, to trade him like he was that guy. Like he was that missing piece to a team that, was maybe had the one guy and needed that second guy to put him over the hump. Or even traded him like attempted to trade him, like he's sure going to be that third guy that's going to also not just play well in the regular season, but do that also in the playoffs. And it's like, if you look at his playoff stats, he has struggled in the playoffs. So I say to the Sixers, they overplayed their hand. They overplayed the guy you think he is, but he's not there yet. And then he started to catch some feeling. So the Sixers in the beginning of this, I think, could have been more honest in his trade value. Again, not a superstar, a really good player. But until he steps up in clutch moments, you cannot value him as a superstar package. And I feel like at the draft, even during the trade deadline, Sixers were kind of putting up this facade for him, like he's that dude, and he's not there yet. He's 25, so can he eventually get there? And I've been on an example record, but when I've talked to people, I should say that, I've said many times up until last season, up until that collapse in the playoffs, alright, gotta give Ben this chance. Okay, this is the season he's going to really take it to the next level. I'm not talking about regular season. We know what he's going to do in the regular season. He's going to be very good in the regular season. He's going to make an all-star team most likely in the regular season. And that's great in the regular season. But what I was saying was, he's going to finally make that jump in the playoffs. And when this year that did not happen, I said, I think it's about time we have to move on. But, and this is also where I'm going to get into sort of a pattern at times with the Sixers. And also why I think this comes into the role of Ben Simmons and how they have played in the Saga. There are times that the Sixers put this superstar label or put this superstar's feel or status on a player, and he's not that. For example, Andre Iguodala, a very good player. He really flourished. I'm not just talking about stats, but I'm talking about full impact when he was in Golden State. Because if you look at his Sixers stats, they weren't bad by any stretch of imagination. Like, he had some good stats in Philly, but his best years were in Golden State because they utilized him to what truthfully he is and what's going to make him a Hall of Fame player, or in some people's minds already a Hall of Fame player. A really good Swiss Army knife, 6-man type of player that can do a lot of everything. Not necessarily a great scorer or a great shooter, but he's a heck of a defender. He can distribute the ball. He can make timely baskets. He can make timely shots. But he's not your number one guy. But he's one heck of a six-man all around type of impactful player. Is he the scorer of a Lou Williams, who's a heck of a 6-man, has won numerous 6-man of the year awards? No, Lou Williams can score in his sleep. But the point is, Golden State had Iguodala where he best fit. And I think we'd have done the same thing. I think the Sixers organization have done the same thing with Ben. Is that they've tried to make him the superstar. Just listen to the commentators. Just watching the games, the way he is promoted and everything. He's promoted as a superstar, and he is not. He is a star and a very good player. And until I see better playoff performance, I don't know if he's on a peak of superstardom, but he's definitely one heck of a star. And I think that mentality is what got the Sixers in this start of this saga in the beginning. And they put a value where it really wasn't. Instead of a reality of where it should have been, where you still could have got a really good package if you still want to trade him, but it wasn't going to be a superstar package, or you just keep him and try to see if things can be worked out. So I think the Sixers, in that sense, messed up. Can it be fixed? Yes. The whole holding out of the $8 million until he came back to the team didn't surprise me. I mean, talk about an incentive to come back. Does he still want to be traded? I mean, you've been hearing that still. He still wants to be traded, wants to leave. But we'll see. We'll see. So that's where I think the Sixers misstepped. That's where I think the Sixers got off course. And like I said, at times they've had a history of that. They haven't had a true superstar since Allen Iverson. And then I can also talk about some trades they should have never done. And I want to bring up an example of someone who's a star who also struggled in the playoffs, and people question, can he make that step forward? And what I want to see with Ben, whether that's as a Sixer or somewhere else. And that is Chris Middleton. For a few years, up until last year, it was said he's going to put up, once he started to become into his own, he's going to put up, really good regular season numbers. But when it came to the playoffs, you couldn't really trust him. Well, this season, he said, forget all that, and I'm going to drop a couple 40s. I'm going to hit big shot after big shot, go off in these third quarters and put the game away. And then obviously, Giannis did his thing, and same thing, and stepped up in ways that people said, can he really make that full step in the playoffs? And that's what I want to see from Ben, because you know what you're going to get regular season, but the playoffs is where the issue has been, no pun intended. And that's where I think, like I said, the Sixers, this could have been solved, or this could have been dealt with better, way better. But when you put something where it shouldn't be, sometimes, and most times, the results are not what you want. And that's what I think happened with this situation, and him not calling the team and everything. And that's the whole personal decision that I won't talk about because I don't know why. But the Sixers could have done this much, much better. And the only way that they would have gotten that superstar package, if you would say, is if you traded them to a team that had a superstar who says, I want to leave. Then you can do that superstar type of package with Ben Simmons. But if you weren't going to find that, you don't trade him like he's a superstar. You trade him like he truly is a really good all-star star player who has yet to fully come to his own in the playoffs. And it didn't help when they tried to trade him, which that's also the timeline of deciding when to trade him didn't work either, because he just came off a terrible second round against the Hawks and an even worse game 7, only scoring 5 points. And he wasn't the only, and I'm not putting the last year's playoffs solely on Ben, because Tobias didn't step up in the playoffs like he did in the regular season, and specifically in the Hawks series, Embiid has some moments that where he seemed like he just fell apart. So it wasn't just all Ben, but in reference to the Ben Simmons saga, that's part of the role that he played. But like I said, in reference to the Sixers, I think timing was off when they tried to trade him. And not even necessarily the timing of when they were trying to trade him, of how they were trying to trade him. That was off. It was. So we'll see what happens from the Sixers side of it. And like I said, coming back with part 2, and I'm going to talk about Ben Simmons' role, or what I think, his role has been in this whole saga. And thank you. I'm glad to be back doing these. Like I said, from my own YouTube channel, it's good to be back. And definitely subscribe, view, comment, and I'll talk to y'all later. Peace.